General quarters, all hands man in battle station.
Broadcasting live on WNN 1470 AM, 95.3 FM, iHeartRadio, and the World Wide Web. This is Make America Think Again with your Google Blacklisted host, Tom Trento.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson. Danger.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone, to the Trento Hour. I am Susie. I welcome you to WNN iHeartRadio. We are on 1470 AM, 96.9 FM, and 95.3 FM. So we are reaching out, actually, to about 5 million residents within this area. And then, of course, we're international because we're on iHeartRadio, and our videos are sent out as so far-reaching as we could possibly get to send the good word and what is shared on this station every single day. That we're on Monday through Friday, 9 to 10. So what is the Trento Hour all about? Our mission is to make America think again. And as we all know, and those that are listening, we are in a spiritual battle for America. And without further ado, I'd like to hand this over to Tom. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, Susie, what's going on?
It's a great Wednesday with 19 days to the election.
Great show. We got some phenomenal guests today, but I have a little opening. I prepared a little opening for us. You ready for it? Again, with 19 days, the situation we are in our country. I'm going to read the words of someone from about 150 years ago during a difficult time, but it's so relevant for today. Here we go. Listen carefully. I'm quoting. We have been the recipients of the choicest bounties of heaven. We have grown in numbers. We have grown in wealth and power as no nation has grown. But we have forgotten God. Okay. I didn't want to do that yet.
Well, you told me to play it since you started reading. You said,
no, when I was done. When I was done. But that's okay for our listening audience. What we're showing is a picture. You can't hear it if you're in the car. There's no audio to it. But a couple of nights ago in Portland, Oregon, the left, the Marxist left, those individuals that are managing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, those individuals tore down a statue of Abraham Lincoln. They tore down a statue of Abraham Lincoln. These are words of Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. Now, listen carefully to the words. They're very appropriate for now. And if you're watching on theunitedwest.org, you can actually see the toppled statue of Abraham Lincoln. These people are insane, but listen to the words of Abraham Lincoln, and then you make a decision on whether you want to go with a party that is tearing down Abraham Lincoln or a party that is honoring Abraham Lincoln. And here's his words. We have been the recipients of the choicest bounties of heaven. We have grown in numbers and wealth and power as no nation has grown, but we have forgotten God. We have forgotten the gracious hand which preserved us in peace and multiplied and enriched and strengthened us. And we have vainly imagined in the deceitfulness of our hearts that all these blessings were produced by some superior wisdom and virtue of our own. And Lincoln goes on, intoxicated with unbroken success, we have become too self-sufficient to feel the necessity of redeeming and preserving grace, too proud to pray to the God who made us. Abraham Lincoln in the midst of the Civil War. And are these words not appropriate for today? I mean, is this amazing?
Yeah, that's why we always have to learn from history, learn from the people who came before us.
Just got a question, Tom.
This party that is tearing down, this isn't the first Abraham Lincoln statue they've torn down. This party is emblematic of a desire to deconstruct, take down the principles of this country as articulated in the person of Abraham Lincoln, and then rebuild this in the image of Karl Marx. I mean, that's where this thing is going.
Is this the same Black Lives Matter? Is this the guy who Black Lives Matter is protesting who said these words, that all persons held as slaves are and herefore after shall be free. Is that the same guy who actually freed the slaves from the South?
They don't
Is
know
it the
that.
same Black
They
Lives
don't know
Matter?
that.
That's, I mean, am I missing something here?
They're missing something here.
We have Laura Loomer on.
A bit ironic, I would say, isn't it? Black Lives Matter, which, look, if you have a little b, Black Lives Matter, come on. It's a stupid statement. Black lives don't matter. Who's going to say that? White lives don't matter. I mean, it's nonsensical. It's completely nonsensical. They have taken what's called a euphemism. They put a capital B, they being the George Soros funded Marxists. We know this. And they have taken very rare situations where there's police brutality. The facts hold that out. And they've exploited that. And they've got a country under their knee. Yeah. They have the commercial enterprises, the sports teams. Unbelievable. But Abraham Lincoln is the guy who died. He died. He was assassinated because of his love and desire to free Black people and not have them be chattel. Unfriggin' believable.
That's what happens when
Laura
people don't learn from history.
Tom?
People don't learn the truth.
We have Laura.
Yeah. Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Okay, so first of all, I am absolutely delighted to introduce Laura Loomer. She is a frequent guest on our show. We're a strong supporter of hers. For those who don't know, I don't know how anybody could not be aware, since she is everywhere. Incredible amount of abundance of energy. She's running for Congress in District 21 against Lazy Lois. It's time to unseat Lois, and Laura is the one to do it. So good morning, Laura. It's so good to have you on.
Push the button.
Hello.
No, she's still on mute.
Push the button, Laura.
Yeah, you got to unmute.
She unmute?
She's calling in.
Look, Big Tech has muted her.
Yeah.
And
yes, that's what happened.
They're probably
She's the
muting
most
her
censored person in the world.
She's on.
Good morning.
Good morning, Laura. So good to have you on. We just wish you all the best. We just know that you are going to be the next Congresswoman sitting there representing District 21 and representing the country. So you stand for all of us.
I got a question for her along those lines. Laura, if you were serving in Congress right now and there was a hearing on whether to tear down the statue of Abraham Lincoln and you had 1 minute. All right, Congresswoman and from the 21st District, Florida, Laura Loomer, you got 1 minute. Give us your pitch on whether or not we should be tearing down Abraham Lincoln's statue.
Yeah, the guy who freed the slaves, right? I mean, look, this is just absolutely absurd. Look, the Black Lives Matter movement is not about Black lives, as you just said in your previous segment. It's simply about destroying our American values and eroding our Constitution and trying to implement a Marxist, a Marxist revolution in this country. It makes no sense. Why would you want to take down the statue? But you know what I find ironic, right? They have no problem with the statue of Margaret Sanger being placed around all of the different Planned Parenthood clinics when the woman created Planned Parenthood as a eugenicist movement to eradicate, the Black population because she was an actual racist. But they want to take down statues of people like Abraham Lincoln who freed the slaves. I mean, there's no logic in this movement. There's no logic in this movement, so it's obscene. But this is why President Trump, it was a brilliant decision of his about a month or so ago when he said that people would be imprisoned and charged with felonies up to 10 years, I believe, right, for destroying federal monuments and federal statues. So that's what needs to happen. If you're going to destroy a federal statue or federal monument or, set fire to our national parks, you need to go to prison.
Yeah. And you know what? That's because and you're aware of history and this true story, but there's a distortion that's occurring to really manipulate people into believing them.
Yeah, well, it has a lot to do. It has a lot to do with the fact that they're not even teaching history anymore in the school system. I mean, just the other day in Boca Raton, they rehired the Holocaust denying principal.
Yeah.
So you have educators like that who are denying the Holocaust, who are saying that Lincoln was a racist and,
So let me ask you a question. Laura, what would you have done in that case if he was in your district? And here you have this, this principal who, as you said, he's a Holocaust denier. And so if he was in your district, how would
he's actually just outside of my district, and I issued a statement about this, and Lazy Lois didn't issue a statement until I basically shamed her into doing so, right? You think that as one of the only 28 members of Congress who's Jewish that she would have taken a hardline stance on this, but she didn't. But you can't be an educator or in charge of educating children if you're going to deny historical facts and historical truths like the Holocaust, and it's not even just an issue. It's not an issue of free speech because, this is a public school. You're getting federal taxpayer dollars to educate children. And, you just cannot be teaching children while denying the Holocaust. It's not, if he wants to deny the Holocaust, perhaps teaching children is not the profession which he, should have signed up to do.
Yeah. And let me ask you a question, since this is so timely with Amy Coney Barrett, and how do you think that the Democrats have handled their questioning?
Well, I think that's probably one of the most disturbing aspects of the questioning was when, what is her name, Mazi Hirono from Hawaii.
Hawaii.
She asked Amy Coney Barrett whether she had sexually assaulted someone. So
whether she raped anybody.
I don't know if she's been, hiding out in the basement with Joe Biden for the last year, and she just dug up her notes from when they were trying to falsely accuse Brett Kavanaugh of rape. But I just cannot believe that these are the people running our country. And then Cory Booker asking her, "Do you condemn white supremacy?" I mean, the woman has children who are blacker than Cory Booker.
Yeah, and they went on their diatribes, about Trump, but many didn't even ask her any questions. And then I thought it was really interesting how Harris. Here she socially distanced herself and wouldn't be in the room with everybody else because of COVID. Then she left there and she went in an elevator with I heard it was
100 people.
Like everybody goes into the elevator and, it's just this crazy, double standard, or how she wants to present herself to the public and then does something differently when she thinks the cameras aren't there. Yeah. Very interesting. So tell us about your campaign and how are you doing?
Well, it's going really well. There's officially 20 days left until Election Day, and early voting begins on October 19th. So we've just been working really hard to touch as many voters as possible and really just seal the deal in these next 5 days before early voting begins. And, the lines this year, they're saying they're going to be longer than most elections in U.S. history. So, there are early voting locations. I would encourage people to vote early. I voted early in the past, and the lines are much shorter. That way you are able to vote, and just in case, you're working on Election Day and you don't have time to wait in a line that may be an hour or too long, because things are much slower now as a result of, all the COVID testing that they do, where they take your temperature and they make you wear a mask to come in to vote. So, early voting, there's multiple different locations. If you go to the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections website, you can find those locations. And the good thing about early voting is that you don't need to go to the location that is on your voter card. You can vote at any of the early voting locations.
Hey, Laura, I got a quick question for you, and last question. Does your campaign staff get a sense of the lines of people who are voting, early voting? Are they Republican, Democrat, 50-50, 90-10? What's the ratio that you guys are finding?
It's different each year. I mean, last in the primary, there were a lot of Republicans who did early voting, but I think it's just a matter of convenience. It's split. It depends on the day as well, because some days for early voting are more popular than others. But I wouldn't really be able to give you, the exact numbers. I just think that people should start planning and making their voting plan, because we're 20 days out, and, God forbid, we've all seen the lines outside of Miami-Dade County in the past where the polls are closed and you still have lines wrapped around the building for people who didn't have time to vote, or they just had an inefficient process. So don't let your vote be robbed. Plan accordingly. And early voting is taking place for about a week and a half or so before the elections.
Great. Well, we wish you all the best, Laura. We are behind you 100%. I know that you have a tremendous following and lots of volunteers, but more volunteers are always welcomed, right? So how can they reach you? How can those who want to work for your campaign, and I know there are many, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah. So you can go to lauraloomerforcongress.com, and you can call the number on the bottom of my website, or you can email me at lauraloomerforcongress.com, and that's how you can sign up to volunteer. 20 days left, so whatever you can donate as well. Every dollar counts, $1, $5, $10. We want to make sure that we unseat Lazy Lois, who the other day on my forum with the Delray Chamber of Commerce is blatantly lying to voters. I mean, she literally said that 200 million people have died from COVID. So she's just trying to incite fear. I didn't know that 2/3 of our country's population has now died from a virus.
It was bad, Laura. You missed it. I'm sorry. You must have been asleep.
You got Bidenitis.
According to Lois Frankel, the United States has just lost 2/3 of its entire population.
We've been decimated.
You got to be kidding me. I know Biden said that.
Yes.
No,
now Lazy Lois.
It made the local Florida press. It made the local Florida papers because she said 200 million people.
I mean, do you just not think when you say those numbers? I mean, how can you not say 200 million? Hold on. That's a lot of people.
It's on video. It's on video for anybody who doesn't believe it too.
How
the whole thing is
stupid
on
do you have
video.
to be?
Unbelievable.
If she's that bad with numbers, how does she handle the budget?
She doesn't. She doesn't do anything. That's
She's lazy.
She's trying to support. She doesn't know numbers. She's trying to support this HEROES Act right now. This stimulus package, which is loaded with pork for illegal aliens, and she wanted to allocate over $140 million of aid in the last stimulus package that went out to illegal aliens here in the district. And she thought that it was acceptable while we had homeless veterans in John Prince Park to give aid to illegal aliens and advocate for them to be put in hotels so they can quarantine during the height of the China virus spread here in Palm Beach County. So it's obscene what she's doing, lying about the rate of infection, lying about the death rate, showing preference to illegal aliens over American citizens. I don't know how this woman has stayed in Congress for the 4 terms that she's been in, and I don't know how the people of Palm Beach have tolerated her for the last.
Well, I've been
years.
here for 30 years, and she's been here for 30 years as a state representative, then as the mayor of West Palm Beach, now in Congress. And she's in a very, very safe district. She does nothing. But what is your district, District 21? What are the boundaries?
It's really not that safe, though. It's really not that safe. The district, as you recall, it used to be a Republican district, and it's been, severely changed over the last several years. And she ran unopposed in 2016. So we're talking about 4 years. And, there's reports that say that 1,000 people a day are moving to Florida. Yeah. So the demographic has really changed here. And so don't let people suppress your vote by telling you that a Republican doesn't have a chance of flipping this seat. There's a reason why they don't want to put any polling out for my district. It's because, I'm neck and neck right now with Lois Frankel, and the media doesn't want you to know about it.
They don't want you to know that. Give us the boundaries of your district for our listening audience. We got Laura Loomer on, folks. 9:22 in the morning on the 14th? I can't see the numbers here.
Today is the 14th.
14th, Wednesday. Give us a north, south, east, west boundaries so people know whether they're in your district or not.
It goes all the way from West Boca. I'll just give you the different areas because a lot of people, that makes it easier for them. So West Boca, okay, Delray Beach, Boynton, Lantana, Lake Worth, Palm Beach Island, okay, West Palm Beach. Palm Beach Gardens is not in the district. Mar-a-Lago is in the district, West Palm Beach, Green Acres, and Wellington. So if you reside in any of those areas, it's a pretty large area. Yeah. So, I don't know if some people have requested absentee. If you did, make sure you vote for me. If you're going to be voting earlier on election day, make sure you vote Republican down ballot.
And Laura, we have tried repeated times to get Lazy Lois on the show. Any success,
No.
Susie Gold?
Yeah, you know what? We've got to get her on.
Yeah, has she
Yeah,
responded
actually,
at
I wrote her. Have not received anything back
Really?
from her.
Yeah.
I'm like
What a
shocked.
surprise.
You know what the heck?
And one last thing. I received an endorsement the other day from General Michael Flynn. I'm the only candidate.
Wow.
Wow, that's
Right.
huge! Congratulations.
Oh, any word on the debate
Yeah.
between you and Lois? Nothing.
No,
No,
Lois-
and
Yeah,
in
nah,
fact,
she
you know,
won't respond.
She doesn't want to. She doesn't want to debate me. And then when I showed up to this candidate forum the other day for the Delray Chamber of Commerce, she was 30 minutes late because she was supposed to speak in the slot before me, and she didn't show up. So it looks like she's scared of me.
She's avoiding you.
She's avoiding you.
Yeah.
She's lazy.
Yeah.
That's why.
Did you run into her at the forum?
No, I didn't. And you know, it's just disrespectful to the voters. It was a Zoom forum because, you know, these people, they
Oh,
don't
Zoom,
want to,
okay,
a lot
okay.
of these Democrats who are moderating these things, they don't want to have, you know, actual events in person. So I told them, I said, we got to get back to our, you know, normal political process of rallies and in-person debates and conversation. We shouldn't be using Chinese Zoom technology. Okay, it's owned by the Chinese Communist Party, and I know you guys use Zoom too, but that's one of the.
We want
like,
the
really
Chinese
big
to hear the
national-
show.
Yeah.
It's playing in
This is-
Wuhan
but
right
this is
now.
one of the very big national security threats that has, you know, arisen throughout the world as a result of COVID. Is everyone's using Zoom, and it's Chinese Communist technology. Look it up. It's not good for us to be conducting our, you know, American political process on technology that's owned by and created by the Chinese, especially given
stock
the
has
state
gone-
of affairs in China.
And
Well,
the
this is how we
stock has
get-
gone through the roof.
This is how we get Laura Loomer into China.
Yeah,
Straighten
you're in
out that
China right
government
now.
over
They're
there,
going,
right?
who did Laura?
Who
Laura
did this
Loomer.
Laura Loomer?
All right, we got to let you go. We got a lot of stuff to do today. Good catching up with you. And if you need anything, let us know. Any news
Yeah.
breaking, anywhere you're going to be, we'll have our intrepid.
Yeah.
We got a couple of reporters now for the show. We have the Jexit ladies.
Uh-huh.
They're doing some
Yeah.
coverage for us. Michelle and Sophia and Karen, they're running all over the place. Something coming up Thursday night. There's going to be a town hall, I think, with the president. So a lot of things going on. All right, Laura, we got to let you go.
Yeah,
Have a
bye.
wonderful
Thank
day.
you, Laura.
And we'll stay in touch with you. Our dear friend Laura, who has come a long way.
She really has. She's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Come a long way.
She is
Remember we
so
played
smart,
the-
energetic, and she's got her facts, she's got her numbers, and she's going to do an incredible job. I am visualizing her taking over
just
Lazy
wait-
Lois's seat.
Speaking of, well, Mark,
Go ahead.
speaking of facts and numbers, did you see Amy Barrett? By the way,
Ugh.
I'm petitioning to just call her Amy Barrett because I can't remember Coney Island, Jim Comey. And it's awkward, you know, these middle name things, right?
Yeah, I think now they're
Um,
referring to her as ACB.
But yeah, ACB, you know, it's
Like
interesting.
that.
But
That reminds me too much
but
of
I'm taking my lead from Amy. Yesterday, she was asked if, because she clerked for Scalia. She was asked, well, if you make it all the way up to that place right behind Congress, you know, Supreme Court, are you going to be a Anton Scalia clone? And she said, let me assure you, I will not be an Anton Scalia clone. I will be Justice Barrett. She didn't
She's a
use Coney
class
Barrett.
act.
She said Justice Barrett. It was poetic. Justice Barrett.
Yeah.
Is she amazing?
So smart. And
She's
smooth,
there.
intelligent.
These witches,
Yeah.
these Democrat women witches. Kamala Harris looked like a witch, like she
Yeah.
was made up for Halloween in that Zoom video. And she's, you know, they're trying to do campaigning and all this, and they're hitting her. And finally, one of the Republicans said, they all have their books, their deal books and their research books. And one of the Republicans said, "What? Could we see your notes? I mean, you have a file."
I actually have the edited. They took out what was actually on. There was words on that notes.
Oh, there were words. Let's
Yeah,
see.
Yeah.
Let's see the words that were on there. For those of you driving in your automobiles now, 9:28 in the morning on WNN,
That's great.
1470. We have a picture of Amy Barrett smiling. Oh, that's the little smile she gave.
Yeah.
She held up the Senate notepad with nothing on
I
it.
think it's at White
No,
House.
there was something on it. Tom.
Well, there was nothing on it, and she said it only says U.S. Senate on it. And then obviously the memes started. And the one we're looking at right now, I saw one that had Jexit exit on it.
Yeah.
Jews exiting the Democrat Party. But this one says, and she's got that little smirk, Amy Barrett does, and it says, I know the cases you are bringing up better than you.
Yeah.
And that was perfect.
I mean, she was
That's
schooling
great.
him left and right. She was like, well, now, Brown versus Smith, and there was the precedent versus Brown versus Smith, and the supporting opinions of Brown versus Smith, and all the way down to, well, the Plessy versus Ferguson, and it relates over to here.
They didn't know what she was talking about.
No, she's
Very smart.
an amazing lady. And we have an amazing gentleman with us right now, a featured guest on our show here today. This is Tom Trento hosting the Trento Show with Susie Gold, my co-host here, Mark
everybody.
in the studio, Mary way up north in another state. And here we have Steve Strang. Steve, welcome to the show. How are
morning,
you?
Steve.
Good morning. I'm doing great. Good to be with you guys.
Well, for our audience, Steve is an award-winning journalist, an entrepreneur, businessman, but he's the founder and CEO of a magazine I've known for many, many years in the evangelical world, Charisma Media, and there's a whole variety of publications that flow out of that. His latest book, God and Donald Trump. That's an amazing title. Steve was voted by Time Magazine as one of the most influential evangelicals in the United States. And he lives right here and works out of the great state of Florida. Steve, by the way, a dear friend of yours, is very close with us. We go back and forth to Israel with him many, many times. Dr. Ronnie Wexler, he wanted us to say hello to you. So how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. And tell Ronnie I said hello.
Absolutely. Steve, we are the United West. We are an organization, an educational organization that has 4 mission statements: to defend the Constitution, defend the state of Israel, to fight against Islamic Jihad, and fight against Marxism. We put a lot of that aside to mobilize 1,000,001 additional evangelical Christians to vote on November 3rd. That's the winning margin. We have many, many evangelicals not voting. You're one of the leading experts in the world on evangelicals. Tell us what's going on in Florida and give us some insight into the evangelical political movement here in the state.
Well, thank you. I have written several books, and of course, I've been publishing Charisma magazine for 45 years.
Wow.
Covering trends, people that are emerging as leaders, what's happening in our culture. And of course, those of us who are Christians and who believe the Bible are very concerned about what's happening. People are calling evil good and good evil. We're beginning to see a level of religious discrimination in our country that I never thought I would live to see. I think it's very, very concerning on what's happening. Now, the trends have been going on for a long time. The left has been acting up for a long time. I mean, I remember the 1960s. I wasn't very old, but I mean, we had riots, even at the Democratic National Convention. A lot of the cities burned after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Vietnam War protests were every bit as nasty as what's going on in Portland. But you know what? The left was going crazy, but it didn't make it all its way to like the Senate and some of those things. I heard Victor Davis Hanson talk about this yesterday, and I thought that he had a lot of sight. So it's different. I think it's more concerning. And in all this, I believe that God raised up a disruptor, somebody that a lot of Christians didn't even like. He was he was known as a billionaire ladies man from New York, never been in politics. Of course, it's Donald Trump, and he's become a champion. He wanted to make America great, and some of his policies were enough to support him, especially when he was running against Hillary Clinton. But we didn't know how he would be, but he's become our friend, our champion. And I'm just afraid that if he's not reelected, we're going to see some very serious things go wrong. Socialism, government control of our lives in lots of ways, laws that I believe will actually criminalize certain parts of Christianity by calling them hate speech. And we've already seen how the governor of California is treating ministers, giving them fines, threatening arrest, not letting them sing or chant in church. I mean, it's appalling. And it's the reason why we've got to get out and vote. We still have power at the polls, and our lives are going to be seriously different. You know, a lot of elections, you have to wonder, you know, who would have been better, Dewey or Truman? You know, who would have been better, Eisenhower or Adlai Stevenson? I mean, we can only speculate, but this is a very, very sharp contrast, very sharp. And we cannot let the other side get in. We've got to give Donald Trump 4 more years to try to turn things around. And one of the things that you mentioned about Israel, you know, the previous administration did not support Israel at all. And Donald Trump kept his word and moved the embassy to Jerusalem. You know, Bush and Clinton, Bush and Obama all said they would, and they didn't. They said there would be, it would trigger war. Well, instead we have peace initiatives that who thought that Israel would make peace with United Arab Emirates or Qatar or,
Exactly.
you know,
Bahrain. Yep, exactly.
Bahrain. Thank you. And yes, so standing with Israel, I mean, there are so many reasons to vote for Donald Trump. And the only reason not to vote for him is you don't like his tweets. So what? In my book, I have a whole chapter in God, Trump, and the 2020 election on what Donald Trump, in his own words, and I quote a lot of his tweets, and most of his tweets are great. You know, some of it is twisted by the media. They take everything that he says and make something negative. I mean, if he walked on water on the Potomac River, the Washington Post would blast him for not being able to swim. And, you know, it's almost that ridiculous. And, you know, really all they say is Donald Trump is a horrible, horrible person. And of course, you don't vote for a horrible person. But isn't it interesting that when he was a Democrat and a New York billionaire ladies man, or whatever you call him, the media loved him.
They loved him.
Only when he ran as a conservative that they started calling him all these things. You know, if somebody, they call him racist all the time. Well, of course, they call everybody a racist. Yeah. But isn't it interesting that his whole life, and he was in the public eye, you know, he was well known. He was never called a racist by anyone at any time. And now they throw it around like it's proof. And there are so many things to prove that he's not. And they just kind of ignore it and keep calling him that, hoping that people believe it and that they'll vote for Joe Biden instead because Joe Biden is such a nice guy. Well, you know, maybe he is a nice guy. He's a family man and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, he was for segregation. He was personal friends with people who are high up in the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, if Donald Trump had done that, they would crucify him. And with Joe Biden, they look the other way. Same thing with what Hunter Biden has done. You know, there's been a lot of criticism of the Trump kids. You know, well, we better keep our eye on them that they don't misuse, you know, their nearness to the presidency. Actually, they've done nothing. I mean, they've been super, super careful. On the other hand, Hunter Biden, who is basically a failure in life, got billion-dollar deals with no experience. Oh, he just happened to be traveling with his father, the vice president of the United States, who, you know, controlled a lot of money. I mean, that alone, we don't want our presidents making their relatives rich. We just don't. That's why there are laws that they have to put their own finances into a trust and all that kind of stuff. We don't want our presidents misusing their power like a tin pot dictator from a third world country. And I'm just afraid that, you know, we talk about dictatorship. Socialism is usually dictatorships. And I think the more and more we get toward socialism, it's more and more like a dictator, except maybe it's not just one person, but it's a whole system. We call it the deep state, and they're wanting to control our lives more and more and more. And I'm very concerned. And that's why I wrote this book, God, Trump, in the 2020 election. It's my attempt to do what you're doing, and that is to turn out the vote. It's an apologetic on why to vote for Donald Trump and what's at stake if you don't.
All right. Well, here's what we have to do now, because you've just written a book on it. And how can people get it? Let's get that out if somebody wants to get that quickly, because they want to read that.
Yeah,
the fastest way to get your book. How could they do that?
Is to go to my website. It's SteveStrangBooks.com. That's my name, Steve Strang, and books with an S. Every copy there is autographed, special prices, but also it's available many other places as well, Walmart and you know, Amazon, of course, and so forth. But the easiest way is my own website, stevestrangbooks.com.
All right, let's get that book, everybody. And Steve, next to me is Susie Gold here.
Good morning.
I'm an evangelical for many, many years, Moody Bible Institute, Denver Seminary, all that stuff. Susie's an observant Jew, so we got everything balanced here. And our campaign for the past 2 years has been entitled A Spiritual Battle for America, protecting the Judeo-Christian framework, Jews and Christians. And there's a lot of conservative, politically conservative, theologically conservative Jews in the state of Florida. So we've teamed up to mobilize the evangelicals and Jews who should be supporting Trump. We're running into people, and I want you to address this because you've written a book on it. And I read the other day a significant pro-life leader from a Midwestern state, a woman, wrote an opinion piece saying, I am a pro-life evangelical Christian and I cannot vote for Donald Trump. And she went on and said, nothing is more dear to me than the pro-life movement, but this man, and then she had all the talking points of Joe Biden, this man's attitude, this man's words, this man's irresponsibility, on and on and on. It's resonating with some evangelicals. How do you address that? And how do you make sense to an evangelical who's trying to figure out, you know, I'm a pro-life person, I'm a pro-family person, I'm pro-religious freedom, but I just can't get past this guy, Trump.
Well, they need to get their eyes open. In my opinion, they're spiritually blind. And you mentioned about Jews supporting Trump. A Jewish friend of mine told me that the closer a Jew is to Torah, the more conservative they are. And the farther from Torah in terms of not going to synagogue, and you know what I'm talking about,
yep.
Being very liberal, the farther they are from being conservative. And it's the same way in the Christian church. The closer someone is to the Bible and the New Testament and loving Jesus, the more conservative they are. And sadly, we've got a lot of liberal evangelicals who grew up that way. They know the terminology, they know what to say. In our circles, you still have to be pro-life, thank God. A lot of the other things, a lot of these evangelicals are thinking, well, maybe same-sex marriage isn't that bad. And, you know, I mean, it's creeping liberalism. There's always been a segment, it's a fairly small segment of the evangelical church who vote Democrat. They voted for Obama, they voted for Hillary Clinton. You know, they were less than 20% last time. They are being more vocal, and they're trying to give each other cover on voting for Biden for all these crazy reasons. But, you know, what does the Bible say about these issues? I mean, even just supporting Israel, Genesis says that God will bless those who bless Israel. I mean, if for no other reason, there are so many reasons to support Donald Trump. And I feel sorry for that lady. I mean, she's revealing something about her spiritual condition, and we don't want to judge. The Bible tells us not to judge lest we're judged. But I feel sorry for it, and we've got to call it what it is. And I think that people are getting away from the Bible. They're you know, when I was a kid growing up in the church, they used to use the word worldly for people who followed the things of the world that were considered sinful and weren't done by Christians. We kind of quit using that word, but really it's people who are more and more like the culture and the media and all that kind of stuff. But I believe that people who really love the Lord and are trying to serve the Lord, they're solidly behind Donald Trump. My concern is that a lot of those people may stay home, and we've got to get them out to vote.
Yeah. And that's, you know, it's a good thing that we're all on the same page. Those that are observant Jews, those that are traditional Jews that understand the relationship with Israel, understand what Trump is doing that is from a biblical nature. And I agree with you in terms of our connection. The closer that we are with the Torah, the Bible, then there's no other way to vote than to vote for Trump. So tell me, what is it that you're doing? I know that you're an author and you're writing the Charisma magazine. How can our listeners get a hold of that magazine and be subscribed to it?
Well, if they go to my website, stevestrangbooks.com, there's a place. But, you know, I'm the founder and owner of Charisma Media. We're principally a book publisher, although we have several magazines, Charisma being our flagship. And charisma is still strong. And charisma has endorsed Donald Trump. I wish I had a copy. The new issue says, "Why charismatics support Donald Trump?" Within evangelicalism, there are different segments. I mean, you said yourself you were with Moody Bible Institute, and Dallas Seminary, so that tells me a lot about you. There are Pentecostals and charismatics within evangelicalism. Evangelicals are just people who believe the Bible and believe that Jesus is our Savior and that the Word of God is true and these kinds of things. But there's a lot of different thought, and in our circles, it's almost 100%. It really is. And if people aren't supportive, then they really kind of leave our circles, if that makes sense. I mean, they kind of drift over to another church, maybe where they feel a little bit more comfortable. But we've got to get the word out because, it's not just some of these policies like the border and things that are so important, but, these things kind of come and go and they shift over time. But really our religious freedoms, and it applies to Jews as well, because, if they start shutting down houses of worship, that applies to Jews, Muslims, really everyone. In California, you can't, well, at one time, they couldn't have more than 10. I think someone told me this week it's up to 25%. But they have all these restrictions, and they say even in the church, you can't sing or chant. So they're telling us how to practice our religion. At our church, part of the way we worship is by singing. It's just part of our worship. So how can the governor of California tell me how, or people like me, how to worship? I think it's very, very concerning. And then you talked earlier about socialism. Socialism is basically atheism. And someone said that a socialist is a communist without a gun. They're, instead of an armed revolution, which they could not win against the greatest military in the world, they're trying to take over at the ballot box and get people like Joe Biden, who is kind of clueless, I'm sorry to say. My mother is 92 years old and she has dementia, and I've seen it coming slowly over the years. And I think that he's got early dementia. I mean, time will tell, but he's not the sharpest tack in the box, that's for sure. And he's going to be manipulated by powerful people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and we can go right down the line. And life as we know it is going to be very, very different if we don't reelect Donald Trump.
That's the message that has to get out for sure. Steve, we got you for a few more minutes, and our director has a question for you. It's 9:46 in the morning, East Coast time, 9:46 in Florida, 6:46 folks listening in California. What is it? 7 hours, 11 o'clock. No, what is 9 and 7 is what? 16 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Israel right now. And WNN 1470, 95.3, Tom Trento here. Mark, you have a question for Steve Strang, our special guest today.
Yeah, I have a question. As you know, the evangelical voting demographics are 50% show out the vote, where the Florida average is 75%. If we can get that up to that difference, that's about 2 million votes, and we rule the state of Florida. But here's one of the ideas that we're trying to toy around with. We have 3 billboards. I'd like your opinion on this billboard. What do you think, if that would be do you think that would motivate voters as far as, can you read it? Can you see it?
On my screen, let me move this. Vote Trump.
Yeah.
Died on Friday, rose on Sunday. Is that part of the billboard too?
Yes, yes.
We're doing a focus study here.
We're doing a focus study group here.
Yeah.
Died on Friday.
I wouldn't run it. It's a little bit over the top.
Okay.
To compare him to our Savior.
No, it's like a Jesus, and Jesus is standing over Trump, guiding his legislation.
I understand.
Okay.
And I have to deal with all that kind of imagery. You asked me my opinion, so
I'm asking. That's the reason I asked you. I was wanting your honest opinion.
You know what? I really don't know that it's as bad as 50%. That number is thrown around. All kinds of numbers are thrown around. How many are registered to vote, and so on. So in my circles, people I know go to vote. You have to ask who is telling it. Who did the polling. I don't think it's quite that bad, is the point I'm saying, but it's hard to prove. And then once it gets out there in the public, people repeat it like it's true. But whatever it is, it ought to be 100%. It really should be 100%.
It should be 100%.
And I registered to vote the very first day I was old enough back in the 1970s. And I've made it my goal to vote in every single election since then. And I'll certainly be voting, this time, of course. And I just yesterday got the ballot for my 92-year-old mother. So she, because of COVID, I can't even go take her to the poll. And so that she can vote. And, we need to be concerned about voter fraud. In fact,
Right.
when she moved to this senior citizens place, I took her to her polling place to vote in 2016. And they turned her away and said she's already voted. And I had no way to prove it. And I think she was a victim of voter fraud. There must have been a ballot that somebody filled in and sent in her name. At this point, she isn't sharp enough, let's say, to call and get a ballot, fill it out, and send it in. And of course, she said she couldn't remember it, but she says that about everything. And I couldn't prove it. But I actually wrote a letter to the supervisor of elections and said, I don't know what happened. But I write about it in God, Trump in 2020. I mean, I use it as an example of where it affected my life. So since then, I've always taken her to early voting so I could vote with her. But now with COVID, we're having to vote by mail. And I'm just very, very concerned in some of these states where, they even go door to door and harvest ballots. I mean, that is just, how do we know that they're not going to just fill in ballots and put in somebody's name and bring them in at the last minute? This happened in 2018 where Republicans won in California, and surprise, 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 they found lots and lots of ballots that hadn't been counted, and surprise, those people voted Democrat. Can you believe that? And, there's a long history of this, so much so that we joke about it. Somebody told me that his uncle was a Republican his whole life until he died, and now he votes Democrat. And I just thought that was kind of funny.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And we need God now more than ever. We always need God in our lives. And I love the title of your book, God, Trump 2020. And, through everything and through, the concerns of will the elections be run honestly, and all, everything that we're approaching right now with, what is legal, what is not legal. Is this going to be, people going out and voting, and we've got COVID, we've got so much work. It seems working against us. However, we have a force amongst us between the Christians and the Jews to unite and together ensure that everybody goes out, that they vote wisely, vote for Trump, and that good will prevail.
Hey, Steve, we got you for like another minute. Picking up from what Susie just said, we got a pretty large audience. Take a minute or so and give us your best shot at encouraging Christians to get out and vote on November 3rd.
Well, we have to stop the trend that's happening before it's too late. And if the other side gets in, I'm sorry, we can look at socialism, high taxes, new laws that criminalize religious freedom. We're going to see more of what we've seen in these Democratic controlled states in terms of shutting churches down. This time it was a pandemic. What is it next time? For one thing, they saw how passively religious people, churchgoers, synagogue goers, you remember that they hassled people at an Orthodox funeral in New York City. So this applies to the Jewish community as well. We have got to realize what's going on. We can't just rationalize and think, well, it's business as usual, and, my vote doesn't count. It does count. And we not only have to vote, but we need to encourage everybody in our sphere of influence. Everybody listening to me right now influences 10 or 20 people who are your co-workers, the people at your church, your neighbors, your own extended family. Encourage them to vote. Tell them why you're voting for Donald Trump. Get them to the polls if you have to. We have got to do it at a grassroots level. There are a lot of good organizations doing a lot of things, but this is going to come down to a handful of votes in 7 different states. Donald Trump won last time by winning 3 states, and altogether he got 80,000 votes more than Hillary Clinton in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And I think it could very well be that close. However, I hope that people are tired of this. Even a lot of liberals who would not agree with me on all kinds of policies like abortion or immigration, they are concerned about how their party has been taken over by the socialists. And let's call it what it is. They're socialists. In fact, they brag about it. Bernie Sanders calls himself that. So does AOC. And they're concerned about that. They don't want their businesses burned and looted, and they don't want their taxes to go up. So we need to link arms with really everybody who wants to keep America on the right track. Donald Trump says it so well, make America great again. You know, we were founded on Judeo-Christian values, going all the way back to the beginning. You know, this has been a great country of opportunity for many people, including the Jewish community. I had a Jewish friend tell me that a lot of Jews see America more as a promised land than Israel, at least before 1948. And I thought that was very insightful. So we've got to stand together. We're people of the book. We've got to stand together and just believe God. You know, I finished my book with a call to prayer, but also a call to prayer and a call to action. And, you know, I talk a lot in my book about spiritual warfare. We haven't really talked about it this morning, but I believe that there's evil in the world. You know, we're afraid to throw that around, but there's evil. And I believe what's happening is people who are evil have kind of taken over the Democratic Party. That doesn't mean us on the other side are saints by any means at all, but at least we're trying to raise our kids the right way and build our businesses and pay our taxes and interact, you know, grow spiritually or whatever people would do in their day-to-day lives. In fact, the Bible tells us to pray for our government so we can live quiet and peaceful lives. And that's what I'm doing. We need Donald Trump so we can have quiet, peaceful lives for four more years. But you know, this tension, this conflict is going to continue even after Donald Trump is out of office. And even with everything we've said, I still believe that Donald Trump is going to win.
Amen. We think so too. Thank you very, very much, Steve Strang. And we will have you back because we want to have that conversation on the fact of evil being something real existing in the world and in fact dominating many, many lives now. Steve, thank you very much. We got to get going. We're at the end of our show. If you need us for anything, let us know. We're working together.
Amen.
19 more days and the world's going to change one way or the other. And we're all believing Donald Trump's going to win very, very big. So you take care. All right.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks. All right, Steve Strang. We had a lot of stuff going on today.
Yeah. A lot in the news. A lot
what do we have
in the news.
What do we have tomorrow?
So tomorrow we got to log on at join us at 9 a.m. We have what's tomorrow? Tomorrow is Thursday.
While you're finding it, we want everybody to tune into
we have Roman Durand. And
he's a Haitian friend of ours.
Yeah, Haitian. He's in the doing some wonderful things for the Haitian community. Yeah. And Peter Pry, who's a spokesperson for Kevin Briggs, he wrote a book on how should I vote, also written from a Christian perspective. So it's really so important to look at this voting from where we're coming from.
What about funding? Last 10 seconds.
Yeah, funding. As I have said before, and I will reiterate that we operate as a 501c3, meaning that all of your donations are tax deductible, and we need your monies in order to complete our work here.
All right. See you tomorrow. These hours fly by.